everyone, welcome to Y Media Group. I am your host Shelly Seni. November is a Falls Prevention Month across Canada. Now, how can we prevent our seniors from falls? To give us more details on that, joining me is Dr. Fatima Hussain. Welcome, doctor. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
The pleasure is absolutely ours, and I really want to learn more. How can we ensure that our seniors are safe? Give us more details on that.
Okay, so falls are one of the most common experiences that older people have from a health perspective as they age. And unfortunately, a lot of falls are very injurious and can cause significant both injuries as well as some life-threatening consequences, including hip fractures, fractures of the vertebral bones, and often those can have complications and be life-threatening. And if people do survive them, one of the things we find is that people often end up having significant both functional as well as memory problems as a result of the falls. So a big focus in November in particular, but throughout the year from a geriatrics point of view, especially at Osler, is for us to try and minimize our falls, both in our hospitals, but also in the wider community.
Right. And then what are some of the tips that one can keep in mind to stay away from falls?
So from a geriatrics point of view, falls are, as with most other geriatric syndromes, are defined as having both internal and external mechanisms. So what I mean by that is internal mechanisms are things like when, as an older person, we start not eating as well, we start losing muscle mass, when we start having medical issues such as strokes or Parkinson's disease, even dementia. These are various internal mechanisms inside the body that increase an older person's risk of falls. Obviously, we can only manage our medical risks, but what is something that can be managed more aggressively are what are called external risk factors. And so those are things like making sure that our environment is set up in a way that we minimize triggers or risks for falls. So what I mean by that is paying really good attention to the lighting in the home when there's an older person or when there's a person who is at risk of falls, to ensure that people, especially in the middle of the night when they get up to go to the bathroom, there's adequate light so that they don't trip and fall. Looking at things like making sure that small area rugs that your foot can get caught on or that can slip from under you, that those are removed or at least are taped down so that they can't move. Looking at making sure that we have put into place things like, for example, auto alert, lifeline or similar systems in place, which mean that, God forbid, an older person falls and they're home alone, they can't get up, they can get help more quickly. Then there's other things like looking at our shoes, making sure that even at home we're not walking around in socks, because obviously that will cause a significant risk of things slipping. Looking at things like making sure that the shoes that we wear have a back to them. I'm from Pakistan. In the South Asian culture, we have this propensity towards wearing flip-flops at home. And flip-flops are one of the worst types of shoes from a falls risk point of view, because they very easily come off. They don't offer your foot any support. And what is recommended is a closed shoe that also has a back to it. things like making sure our glasses are up to date, that we're not walking around wearing our reading glasses. And then there's things that you need other healthcare professionals to help you with. So, for example, there are certain medications that increase an older person's risk of fall, but obviously any given individual can't stop their medications without advice from their medical practitioner or their pharmacist. So it's just a matter of making sure that our medications someone has reviewed them, and that the ones that are higher risk for falls have been either discontinued or decreased.
Right. Dr. Hussain, listening to your answer actually made me think that everything that you pointed out are basics that should be taken care of. And often the most simplest things in life we tend to overlook. So once again, it would be a request from Y Media's platform as well to listen to what Dr. Hussain is saying, because once you ensure that the basics have been taken care of, a lot of the risks are, maybe thrown out of the window, if I may say so. But you mentioned one more point, that when someone is not eating right, you tend to lose the muscle mass. Now, would you recommend someone who is in the 40s itself, late 30s, 40s, that you should start taking care from there? I mean, we should be taking care throughout our lives, but someone maybe potentially with a history of bone issues in the family, especially speaking from female perspective, that 30s or 40s is the stage where you should be more aware of what you're doing now, because actions of today will affect your tomorrow.
100%, you're right. So osteoporosis is directly, one of the risk factors for osteoporosis is a lack of what's described as gravity-based physical activity. And so walking on a regular basis not only improves your bone strength, it obviously also improves your muscle strength. And all of the muscles in the body are really important for maintaining upright balance, for maintaining walking strength, for minimizing risk of falls. But obviously our spinal cord and the muscles of our core, plus what is called the quadricep muscle, so the big muscle that's in the front above the knee, that is actually one of the biggest determinants of falls risk in elderly patients. And therefore, obviously, we would want all of our elderly patients to be active. There are recommendations that people should be doing 30 minutes of vigorous exercise daily, but it's very difficult to spend your entire life in a sedentary fashion, and then you turn 65 and you think that, oh, I'm magically going to be able to turn this around. And so you are correct that what you do in your 40s and 50s and 60s actually has huge implications for your geriatric years.
Right, we are talking about physical fitness, but we have colder months coming in very soon. And speaking of physical activity, then so within the house, if they were to walk or move around, what are some of the basic tips you would give so they stay safe when they are physically active within the four walls of the house?
So there's a couple of things you can do. A lot of older people go to the indoor malls in the area, and they do what's called mall walking. And there are tracks. For example, I think some of the Brampton community centers actually have indoor walking tracks, which people can avail of. I believe there is a small cost associated with those. And then the last thing you can do is you can set up a track within your house. So if you do a track around your family room and your kitchen and your living room and just do 10 laps twice a day, that's pretty good. And I would certainly not suggest that older people go out walking when the weather is bad or when it's icy or wet. But there are days in the winter where it is dry. And in those circumstances, with adequate support and proper shoes and proper outerwear, there's no reason why people can't go outside and walk in their neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Fatima Hussain, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and knowledge you shared with us and how you touched upon the very basic and essentials that should be taken care of. But before I let you go, is there a tip or an advice you have for our viewers?
So the one thing I'd like to say is that I haven't mentioned, one of the conversations I often have with my older patients is that when they have been recommended to use a cane or a walker, that people are often very hesitant to use them. And the one thing that I do want to emphasize is that if a medical health professional has recommended that someone use a walker or a cane, then it is something that will decrease your falls risk. And we in the world of geriatrics would certainly encourage people to use it. I tell my patients that that's your dancing partner. It goes everywhere you go. So don't not use your gait aids just because they'll make you look old. Think of them as a fashionable accessory.
Wow, I really like your approach, and I'm sure your patients just want to come to you and sit and talk.
I am very blessed with my patient, and I'm very grateful to be working in William Osler. We're an excellent community hospital, and we're at the forefront of a lot of the things that are happening in geriatrics in Canada, and we strive to continue to improve our service every day.
Thank you so much for talking to us. You took out time from a busy schedule. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely speaking with you.
Likewise. You stay tuned with Y Media. There's lots more coming up. Thanks for watching.